The U.S. Open starts this week. It's the first major since the LIV PGA Tour merger, and Game 5 of the NBA Finals is tonight between the Nuggets and the Heat. Welcome into WRAL Triangle and Two. I'm Mark Bergin. He's Luis Fernandez. Luis, we start, though. We now are closer to the teams going to Omaha, Nebraska for the College World Series, and I'm pretty sure the Wake Forest Demon Deacons have scored yet again.
It's so wild, man. Just the way their offense was always good. They were always top 3 in the ACC, and their pitching has been phenomenal this year. But man, hold on, I did the math as I pull up my notes here from the ground. I did the math. So what, they've scored 75 runs in 5 games in the postseason, or in the College World Series postseason. So they are essentially beating teams by an average of 15-3 in this postseason. The only game that was close was that first game against Alabama where they win 5-4. But geez, man, that's so wild. I just if this iteration of Wake Forest is what you get for the rest of the College World Series, I don't know if anyone's gonna be able to beat them.
This might sound like a hyperbole, Lewis, but it's like Wake Forest's football team, sans Sam Hartman, quarterback who is now gone, Notre Dame now. They're likely to score fewer points than the Demon Deacons do runs during this postseason run. The hottest offense in all of college baseball.
I mean, it's wild. They had 22 in that game against Alabama to win the Super Regional. When you combine that with how good their pitching has been, it's just so ridiculous to think. You look at it, they've had 129 home runs this year, which is absurd. I think only 2 other teams in the ACC have had over 100 this postseason. Duke is one of them. They losing to Virginia in the Charlottesville Super Regional earlier this week. They have drawn 404 walks with a 309 batting average. Their on base percentage right now is 432 as a team.
Yeah.
Their on base percentage right now is 432. They're just, and then when you combine that with their 172 earned runs as a pitching staff, which is no other team in the ACC has less than 200 earned runs as a pitching staff. They've only pitched 166 walks. With the next closest, by the way, is UVA at 194. Their opponent batting average is 203. I don't know. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a favorite to win the College World Series.
It's like they're playing a different sport than everyone else. And now 2 guys that I would encourage people to watch if you're just catching on to the college baseball tournament postseason now that we're getting into Omaha, now that we're getting into the College World Series. Projected first-round pick Brock Wilken in first 4 games, tournament games, no home runs. He went deep 3 times. And then Nick Kurtz as well can absolutely mash the ball, Lewis. 9 home runs in a game this past weekend, which tied an NCAA record. 9 home runs in a single game. You hope that they don't fulfill their run quota too early in the tournament now that they are going to Omaha. But the thing that's incredible to me is Wake Forest hasn't made the College World Series in 68 years. Yeah. So that's the longest wait to return to the CWS for any team that has actually won it before. And so the last time they actually made it was back in 1955, Lewis? So it's this run that the Demon Deacons are on, you hope that you can keep it going now that you're down in Omaha now, because the field just keeps whittling further and further down until eventually we would crown a champion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 1955, back when we mentioned this last week, coming from Dennis Cox over at 99.9. Back when they won the College World Series that year, they were still in Wake Forest. They were not in Winston-Salem yet. It's been that long. They are the only North Carolina team to ever win a College World Series, and they're on pace to do it again. They're just playing so well right now, truly. They've only I went back because I was kind of curious, right? So for those who are unaware, once you get to the College World Series, it is a double elimination tournament, and then the two brackets have a winner come out of them, and then those winners play a best of 3 series. But just looking at it, I mean, it's just hard to imagine them losing 2 games over the course of a week or so, right? They March 7th loss, March 11th, March 19th, so 3 losses in March. They had 3 losses in April. They had 4 losses in May. May was technically their worst month, and they still were the number 1 overall seed, and they had that loss to Miami. But they haven't lost a single game after the ACC tournament, and it's going to be hard to imagine someone beating them at this point. It's going to be interesting. So their side of the bracket, the only team that we know as of this recording, it's 12:36 on Monday, June 12th. So you do have 2 games that are going to be played later today. But as of this recording, it's in bracket 1. It's Wake Forest, LSU, and then they will also have the winner of Stanford and Texas. That is tied 1-1 right now. And then the winner of Southern Miss and Tennessee, which is also tied at 1 apiece. So, I mean,
the table is set there really quickly, Lewis, before we move on to talk hoops. Duke season's over, and the Blue Devils also trying to vie to get back to the College World Series in Omaha, not able to do it. And we were watching the game Friday in the WRAL newsroom, and the game ends with the Blue Devils, the outfielder making a leaping catch at the wall.
Yeah.
Maybe he robbed a home run. It was right there. It was like, all right, win 1 more, best of 3. And then Virginia takes care of business in the next 2 games, and it'll be the Cavaliers advancing on, and Duke season is now over.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia's they had the best batting average in the ACC. They were hosting that super regional for a reason. So I keep on going back and forth on that final out. By the way, on that Friday game, I don't know. I think it would have landed on the warning track, but at the very least, at least 1 run was coming home, and it would be tying going to extra innings. And you imagine Virginia's going to have the momentum there. So no, I mean, I think that Duke Blue Devil team. All right, listen, I went to UNC. I am a person who has feelings and emotions, but that Duke Blue Devil team is hard to root against. They are a very fun team. It's a very fun program that they've put together. They had never been to a super regional, and then in 2018 they make it, and now they're tied with UNC for most super regional appearances since then for an ACC program. They're very good, and they're really putting together a good team. They're going to continue to. When we were talking with head coach over there on, I think it was Monday of last week. It was before they traveled to go to Charlottesville. So I guess maybe it was Wednesday or something like that. But one of the things they mentioned is hey, winning begets winning. And when you have the opportunity to have success, that's when you're able to convince some people who are the more talented players to come through. And much respect to Duke's baseball program. I think they're in a good position to continue to have that success. MJ Metz was such a fun story this year too.
Yeah, with the ACL and just mashing home runs, and it's just almost Kirk Gibson-esque, Lewis.
Yeah, they're going to be Duke baseball is going to be just fine. They're in a really good position. Good season on their end, and excited to see what they do moving forward.
Look at Luis Fernandez, executive producer, podcast host, and I would say diplomat now. Saying nice things about, do you like that? Saying nice things about the Duke Blue Devils, even as a UNC alum.
You gotta sometimes you wear this sometimes you wear the cloak of objectivity, sometimes you wear the cloak of subjectivity.
The cloak.
I just much success. They're gonna be great. Duke's a fun team. What is it, the blue collar, I think, is what their kind of team catchphrase is. So they're a fun team.
All right, we will move from the ball diamond to the hardwood. Game 5 of the NBA Finals is tonight. Denver Nuggets hosting the Heat. Nuggets enter as a 9-point favorite. Lewis, do the Nuggets get it done tonight, close out the series, and win their first NBA title in franchise history?
Yes. Next subject. No, I just the Nuggets have only lost 1 game at home all postseason, and it was to the Heat, to be fair. And if there is a team that you are not going to bet against, in this postseason, it's the Miami Heat. Just
Mm.
how they've been battling the odds, how they've been coming through. They've been such an amazing story coming all the way here from an 8th seed to, having a 1 win in the NBA Finals, 3 wins away from winning it all. But the Nuggets are just a machine, man. Truly. It's hard for me to see the Heat being able to steal another one, especially on the road. If this game was in Miami, I think there'd be a better shot, but it's gonna be hard for the Heat to pull this one away. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Do you want Petty Mark to come out early on, or like where do you want? Do you want me to be petty? Do you want me to be professional? What would you like?
I love
Lewis?
Petty. I love Petty.
Okay,
I
Petty
love
Mark
Petty. Let me
will
hear
come out on the pod right now. Let's get Mark Gottfried on the home to give a pep talk to Caleb Martin, NC State's very own. It's been like, for me, the difference in this series is Caleb Martin in the Eastern Conference Finals outplayed Jaylen Brown, played out of his mind. You look at the game logs and the statistical production, he's not even averaging 7 points per game. This was a player that you really, really relied on in the round before. Now, I understand that was what is now looking like an anomaly, but can you help Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo? And it's like, Butler to me is not 100%. If after the season it comes out, oh, he needs ankle surgery or foot surgery, I wouldn't be surprised, because to me, he just doesn't have the lift, the bounce, the juice that he normally has as a star player. It's not to say he hasn't played well at times, but Jimmy Butler hasn't had that like dominant signature game in this series that he would need to have at least once for the Heat to pull off an upset as an 8 seed, if you will.
It reminds me of like when the Heat were in that finals against the Lakers in the bubble, and Jimmy Butler has that like 40-point triple-double game. Like, it feels like that's what the Heat would need in order to pull this one away.
And like, here's the thing too, when I always try to listen to what the players say, Lewis, because what they say or what they don't say can determine a lot. But like, talk to any athlete down 3-1, they're going to be like, yeah, we like our odds. Any athlete who's competitive to say, yeah, we have to win 3 games in a row and we win a title, I'll take that. But there's a reason why in the finals that the 2016 Cavs are the only team in NBA history to overcome that deficit. You mentioned how good Denver's been at home this season. I initially thought the series would go to 6 games. I mean, if the Heat are able to pull off an upset tonight, that to me would be huge. But I think the Nuggets do end up getting it done tonight. And if not tonight, game 6, because the Heat would have to expend all of their energy and resources to where it's win or go home. I just don't see that happening with the way that they match up against the Nuggets. I mean, I go to game 4, right, where Jokic dealt with foul trouble, which the other league's superstars don't have to put up with. The LeBron James, the Kevin Durant's of the world. I could list off other players, but Jokic deals with foul trouble. Jamal Murray gets held in check, at least to an extent. Okay, and then Anthony ends up picking up the slack for the Nuggets. Like, so if you weren't going to win game 4 when Jokic and Murray didn't play that well, what happens in a game where they do play it well at home in a closeout game to where it's like, hey, they win and they win the title tonight? So initially I thought this series would go 6 games. I'd be really surprised. Like, yes, don't bet against the Heat, but they have a tall task. I don't think they'll be able to upset the Nuggets tonight. I think the Nuggets bring home the title. We'll see, though.
So, like, I think what made this NBA final so fascinating was the individual storylines, the adjustments, the strategy involved, right? Malone's has had a really good year with the Nuggets. Obviously, he's been there for a while now. Eric Spoelstra, I've made my opinion on Eric Spoelstra pretty clear. I think he's the best coach in the NBA right now. But it's like the Heat came out and adjusted in game 2, and were able to take game 2 because of those adjustments. And the Nuggets responded, and they made changes. And now, well, like, what more is there to do? I also, a big part, and because I remember very vividly the conversation after game 2 when the Heat won was, oh, you got to take away the other players for the Nuggets and just let Jokic go off, and then that'll be, that's how you win. Like, oh man, you got to limit everyone else, let him become a scorer, which is a little ridiculous. But when you look at, really, it's all about the Nuggets defense, like the Nuggets defense, or the lack of Heat offense, if you will. You mentioned the backcourt issues, people like Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, like those type of players. Are they scoring? Are they hitting from outside? In the game that the Heat were able to steal against the Nuggets, they shot 48.7% from three. In the 3 games that they've lost, 33.3%, 31.4%, 32%. That's a 93-point loss, or 93 points in a loss, 111 points in a win, 94 points in a loss, 95 points in the loss. They just haven't been able to keep up with the Nuggets offense. And whether that be because of Jokic doing exactly what we expect of Jokic, whether it be Jamal Murray being one of the best playoff performers we've seen over the past few years, whether it be like the Aaron Gordon's.
Aaron Gordon is what I meant earlier, Lewis, to where the Heat hold Jokic and Murray in check, and then Aaron Gordon is the difference in game 4. And then Aaron Gordon's defense on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's been able to bully other players all throughout this playoffs. He has not been able to do that against Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon's been, and it's funny when you look at like, oh yeah, Aaron Gordon's like the 3rd best player on that team. Like, this is a guy who was an all-star, borderline all-star in Orlando. Like, so they have a lot of depth. They have a lot of talent. And I think ultimately that is going to be what does it, is that the Heat are just kind of, the battle is just a little bit too uphill for the Heat. It would not shock me if they steal this game, though, just because of what we know this Heat team to be, how they react, how they adjust, how much they battle. Like, this is a very fun team to watch, a very fun team to root for. So it wouldn't surprise me, but I everything about this game tells me, yep, it's a wrap. Congrats to the Nuggets for your first ever NBA Finals championship.
I thought maybe Tyler Hero could make a difference if he came back, but that would be a lot to ask of a player. But he did average 20 points per game during the regular season. One thing I want to ask you really quickly before tonight's game, what's more likely come back down 3-1, Miami Heat in the series against the Nuggets, or the Florida Panthers in the series against the Golden Knights in hockey?
I'm going to go Panthers because I think the NHL is a little bit it's a little bit more chaotic, just in terms of like the Stanley Cup finals are always that way. Stanley Cup playoffs are always like that. So I'd go Panthers. It's this Nuggets team. You kind of felt it at the beginning of the playoffs. It's going to be, especially once you saw how the Nuggets handled like the Timberwolves. I know they're Timberwolves, but still, it's going to be, I think, hard for any team to beat this Nuggets team in a best of 7 series in this iteration of the NBA.
I hate to agree with you, but Matthew Tkachuk is still playing for the Panthers, right?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so since he's still playing, I will agree with you. I'll take the Panthers.
There you go. Although it's tough. I think
back. For the record, I don't expect either comeback to happen, but if I had to pick one between the Heat or the Panthers, which is more likely, trying to throw some love to any people down in Florida that may be watching WRAL Triangle and Two.
Yeah, sports are so cruel, man. They're so cruel. You're 1 minute you're riding high. You're a Miami sports fan. You're like, oh man, 2 of my teams are in the finals, and the next thing you know, they're both down 3-1. Like, sports are tough. Sports are not for the weak-hearted. I tell you what.
All right, last topic of today's WRAL Triangle and Two. U.S. Open starts this Thursday, Father's Day weekend. We're going to be at the Los Angeles Country Club for this weekend's event. But the reason why we're talking about this, Lewis, this is the first major since the merger between the PGA Tour and LIV. And to me, the analogy I will make to you is this merger is like how Jerry Seinfeld and his neighbor Newman decided to form an alliance, 2 polar opposite forces. So let me paint the picture for you for what makes it ideal this weekend, Lewis.
Okay.
You go into the final day, and let's get Rory McIlroy in contention at the end to win a major. A guy who stuck with the PGA, did not defect over to LIV. And let's pair him against I don't know, a Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, someone who
Oh,
did
yeah.
defect over. That is the storyline I am hoping for this weekend. Floor is yours. What say you about this weekend now that we're getting into another major?
Well, no, it's so funny because, like, I mean, I feel like no one's talking about the fact that the U.S. Open is going to happen. Like, it's all about Live
It's
and the
also
PGA
Monday.
merger and
It's
everything.
also
Oh, yeah.
Monday.
I mean, sure, but like, yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the storyline. This is LA's first time hosting a major, if not a U.S. Open, in 75 years. This is the first time the U.S. Open has been at this course in particular. It's the third time since 2015 the U.S. Open has been at a brand new course, or a course that hasn't hosted one before. Um, it's the most significant event that this course has hosted since the Walker Cup in 2017. So I think that there's a lot of fun storylines here with how this could go, but the question on everyone's mind is going to be everything PGA and Live related. I was reading the AP article before this, and it was, I think there was one sentence in there that said there were so many people who had requested credentials, and a bunch of them have been denied because they don't cover golf. They're there for other reasons. Um,
Mm.
and that to me is what's going to be interesting to see, because this year with the majors, we saw everyone get along, right? We saw Brooks Koepka was there in contention at the Masters. Everyone was pretty cordial, was pretty cool with each other. There was not any kind of like beef that was had between different golfers. And then in the PGA Tour, or the PGA Open, he goes and win the PGA Championship, excuse me. Brooks Koepka wins it all. Once again, not really any kind of bad blood or anything like that. Everyone's just living. But now this is different, because all of a sudden, if you were someone who batted for the PGA and did not go to Live, like, you're like, what was the point? What was I doing? And if some of these golfers who made a lot of money by going over to play for Live and now are just going to have the opportunity to do everything that you can do, you're just like, what's the deal here? So I think there may be some like contention between golfers, but I think in almost a lot of ways you might see just golfers getting upset at the PGA as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It is dramatic, which maybe that's going to be good for the PGA just in terms of the people watching and the people talking about it. But it's a tough look, man. It's a tough look. That's how I would phrase it.
And when I'm saying Rory versus Brooks, really what I'm really saying, Lewis, is we get it's someone who stuck with the PGA Tour, someone who defected over to Live, going head to head Sunday. If that's a storyline going in, all of those media members that requested credentials, that's going to be the storyline that gets drawn up. I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily saying, oh, it'll be Brooks or it'll be Rory, but I kind of want to see that drama unfold. And then particularly as well, because I've told you this, I watched the Full Swing documentary series on Netflix. I know they're recording all of this. So
Yeah.
whenever the new season comes out to where they have honest, candid reactions and not prepared statements of, okay, let me play PC, let me make sure I'm not going to potentially lose money by saying the wrong thing or reacting in the wrong way in the moment. This is more so what I want to see, that honest, candid reaction that really you can't get anywhere else. And
Yeah.
again, this the first major since the announcement of that merger. Like, I know this is a big deal, Lewis, from the standpoint of when this happened at our station at WRAL, we're sending a news reporter now down to Pinehurst in Moore County, North Carolina, to ask people and to talk to them. Hey, what are your reactions to this, to where it becomes a news story and not just a sports story?
Exactly. By the way, the U.S. Open will be on NBC on WRAL. Plugging that in, just so everyone knows. Yeah, no, it is definitely something that has transcended sports, just in terms of what this is going on, the political ramifications, the cultural ramifications. Like, there are a lot of big question marks, things that still have to be answered. Also, like, from a golfing perspective, right? If Brooks Koepka comes out here and wins another major this year, his second, and it would be the third that he's been in contention with on Sunday. Like, you're looking at one of the best golfers in the world, if not the best golfer in the world, being a guy who is with Liv. And so that's where things are really starting to get tricky and interesting. And I'm super curious to see how it all unfolds. Is all of this good for golf? Is all of this good for PGA? There are people who are a lot smarter than me, who know a lot more about golf, who probably should weigh in on that. But I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. It all kind of feels a little gross. But you know, it will be dramatic. It will be dramatic. And hey, listen, LA's a city all about storylines and drama and you know, movies and stuff like that. So hey, maybe this is all going to be a match made in heaven.
And the flip side of that, though, too, Lewis, is if you're a golfer who might not be quite cut to compete in the PGA Tour and you're offered all of this money on a case-by-case basis, like, you know, it's hard for me to say, no, don't do this for your career, to support your lifestyle, your family, that kind of thing, too. It's tough. It's really, really tough. But now that there's this merger now, too, we'll see how all this shakes out. I hope we can carry the momentum coming off the Canadian Open this past week.
That was electric.
Nick Taylor making a 72-foot eagle putt, the longest of his career. First Canadian in 69 years to win the National Open. Like, at the end of the day, is this going to be for the betterment of golf fans in the sport of golf with the drama? And again, the political ramifications, again, you kind of hit the nail on the head, Lewis, where people know about the ties, the Saudi government and everything, and the ties with Liv, and could explain it a heck of a lot better than either of us could. But we're setting up for this weekend to where the narratives are set, and we'll see from a golfing standpoint who's in contention come Sunday. And then, you know, that's something that you can share. It's something where I won't get to see my dad this weekend, Lewis, but you can best believe we'll be texting on Sunday throughout the tournament to see, hey, who's winning this tournament at the very end? How's this all going to shake out?
There you go. My big question is, will the golf this weekend be about golf? That's
well
where
said.
I'm at.
Well said.
Let's see if that's what ends up happening. But yeah, hey, there you go.
Lewis, this has been a great episode of WRAL Triangle and Two. Anything you need to plug upcoming this week? I know, again, U.S. Open will be on WRAL throughout the weekend as well. But anything you got coming up that you'd like to plug before we sign off here?
Watch Durham Bulls on WRAL Sports Plus this week. Oh, also, high school OT honors is also this weekend, this Saturday. You can watch it on WRAL.com. You can also watch it on WRAL Sports Plus. A lot of great high school teams, individual players, coaches, administrators, fans being honored. We also have the Stuart Scott Courage Awards that you can watch all week long on WRAL, where we're going to highlight some of the different people who've been nominated for the Stuart Scott Courage Award for high school OT honors. Their individual stories. You can catch those, throughout the week in the 6 o'clock newscast, also online. And then we'll find out on Saturday who ends up winning the whole thing.
Lewis, you're the absolute best. That's Lewis Fernandez. I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for watching WRAL Triangle and Two. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.